Hello, 5th graders. This is Miss Advina, and we are getting ready to do Lesson 3 of Unit 3, Week 2. We're reading A Short History of a Special Plant, Part 1, Identify Main Idea and Key Details. Your objectives are, I will be able to read to identify and annotate key details, use key details to determine the main idea, and share my thinking with peers. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and open up your book, and I want you to open it to page 12. You're looking at A Short History of a Special Plant. Before we get started, I want you to preview the text. Do the 4 T's. What is the text title and who's the author? What are the text features you find? What's the text format? Last week we talked about point of view. Do you suspect that this will be written as a subjective, meaning that it brings in the opinions of the author? Or do you think it will be objective, meaning that it focuses on facts and important information about the topic? The last thing we're going to look at is text structure, but we probably won't get to that right now. Right now, I want you to do a quick preview of the text. Make some predictions and fill in the side of your book with the information that I'm asking for, the 4 T's. Pause the recording, and I'll see you in a few moments. Welcome back, 5th graders. So we're getting started. You should have A Short History of a Special Plant by MacDonald, and right next to it I have the page number where I located that, and that was on page 12. Some of the text features that you might have are, there's a picture on page 12 along with a caption. There's a diagram along with labels. There's a subheading, Early Cultivation. There's a map on page 15 and 16, and I located a chart on page 18. This is not all of the text features that you should have been able to find. This is just a short list. I'm hoping that you have more on your book. The text format that and it went to the other page. Let me open those up again. The text format is an informational article. And the point of view is objective. I didn't see any personal opinions in this, so I'm guessing that this is going to be an objective point of view that's giving me information that I can form my own opinions with. So let's get started with reading it. I'm going to have the computer read to you the title and the first 3 paragraphs, and then we're going to go back and look at it together.
Extended Read 1. Remember to annotate as you read.
A Short History of a Special Plant by Laura MacDonald. Today, corn is the largest crop grown in the United States. Most years, American farmers produce more than $60 billion worth of corn. The story of how the United States became the biggest corn producer in the world begins thousands of years ago, in what is now Mexico. Corn, as we know it today, started out as a wild grass plant called teosinte. More than 5,000 years ago, Native Americans in Mexico developed teosinte into maize, or corn. Teosinte has only 5 to 12 kernels on each ear, while modern corn has hundreds of kernels. Maize spread through North, Central, and South America, and became a major part of the Native American diet. Maize was an important crop to the first peoples of Central and North America. Most people used every part of the corn. They used the stalks for roofs. The cobs were used for fuel. They used the silk to fill beds. They braided the husks to make mats, beds, baskets, and dolls. The kernels were ground into cornmeal for cooking and baking.
Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to stop there, and now I'm going to go back through the text and look for those key details. I'm going to be using the line tool for this. You guys will be using your pencil to underline. So, looking at the first paragraph, the 3rd sentence reads, the story of how the United States became the biggest corn producer in the world begins thousands of years ago. So I'm going to underline that as a key detail, because this is not only telling us who, the United States, did what, became the biggest corn producer in the world, but it also tells me when it began thousands of years ago. That seems to be a key detail because it's giving me quite a bit of information. Who, the United States, did what, the biggest corn producer, and when, thousands of years ago. That seems like the biggest idea in that particular paragraph. Now I'm going to go down to paragraph 2. I read that corn began as a grass called teosinte, and this is a pronunciation. You read it exactly the way it says. Te-o. These capital letters tell me what syllable to emphasize. Sin-ti. Teosinte. So I know I need to put more emphasis on this sin part. This is very useful for words that the author knows you're not going to know. Now, I read that corn began as a grass called teosinte. This is an interesting fact, but the key detail is in the second sentence. More than 5,000 years ago, Native Americans in Mexico developed teosinte into maize or corn. So I want to underline that part because that again brings me back to a timeline and where it all began. And it didn't begin in the United States, it began in Mexico. And it didn't start with corn, it started with teosinte, becoming corn. I think it's interesting that corn has many more kernels than the original plant, teosinte, but I don't think that's a key detail, so I won't underline it. So I'm going down to paragraph 3, and it says in paragraph 3, it explains how early cultures depended on every part of the corn. I'm going to underline these key details. Most people used every part of the corn. And I'm going to go with just the part and what it was used for. The stalks were used for roofs, the cobs were used for fuel, the silk to fill beds, and they braided the husks to make mats. Oh, and I can continue that one. Beds, baskets, and dolls. And the kernels were ground into cornmeal for cooking and baking. So reviewing my annotation so far, I can state a main idea for these paragraphs. That for thousands of years, people have depended on corn, and it continues to be an important crop in the United States. So now I'm going to go over to a chart that we have. And it's the key details and main ideas chart. In paragraph 1 through 3, the key details that I need to really focus on are that the United States is the biggest corn producers in the world, or the states are the biggest corn producers in the world. Corn was developed more than 5,000 years ago by Native Americans in Mexico, and that early people in Central and North America used every part of the corn. They used it for roofs, fuel, bedding, mats, baskets, dolls, and food. I paraphrase this end part because it would be much too long to type it all out. I'm taking these 3 key details and creating a main idea. For thousands of years, people have depended on corn, and it continues to be an important crop in the United States today. So I took these 3 main key details and put it into a paraphrased main idea that I came up with. So this is the author and me working together to come up with one big idea for that section. Now, your job is not there, your job is going to be, it's on the other page of this one, is to read early cultivation, that very next section, and identify how corn was cultivated and the benefits of this type of cultivation. So you're reading paragraphs 4 through 7, and I want you to annotate, underline key details as you read. If you need to open up the program, and I actually gave you this in your benchmark under your assignments, you can do exactly what I did and listen to the text. So you're not reading it completely alone, because it might have words that you don't recognize. And it's useful to hear things read out loud so that you fully understand what it's saying. So going back to our objectives, you should be able to read to identify and annotate key details, use key details to determine the main idea, and share your thinking with peers. Happy annotating, 5th graders.